Another playoff game preview. Here we go, boys and girls. Good times. Welcome in to On Three's coverage of college football. Always, this time around, we're joined by our friend Spencer Holbrook. He is of Lettermen Row. You know the outstanding work that they do covering the Ohio State Buckeyes, and this should be a great game against Georgia. And Spencer joins us now. Spencer, good afternoon, good evening. Appreciate you for your time as always. Good to talk to you again, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me. Always appreciate being on here and talking about the Buckeyes.
Yeah, man. So, it's interesting. I look at this game. Let's look big picture and just talk about what we think this game is going to look like, or at least from the Ohio State perspective, certainly. How does Ohio State have to win this game? Do you picture this just really being a pressure-packed game for this offense to hang 40, the way that Ryan Day has talked about some, or do you think this defense shows up having been a little bit embarrassed by the big play against Michigan, looking to shut some of that down? I guess just your generalized thoughts of how you see this game playing out. What's the race to, if you will?
Yeah, I think it can be a little bit of column A and a little of column B there, Jeff, because, Ohio State knows that playoff teams generally score 40 and win games. If you score 40 in a playoff game, you're almost guaranteed to win. But the defense also has to be able to show up because, in 2019, Ryan Day coached a team that only scored 23. Well, Clemson scored 29. And so that's still not a lot of points, but Ohio State's defense played well in that game, but the offense didn't finish drives. It kicked field goals, and they lost. And to a team they probably shouldn't have lost to. Well, this is a team that a lot of people aren't giving Ohio State a chance against. But if Ohio State can score touchdowns on Georgia and hold Georgia to field goals, because the Dogs have had their own struggles in the red zone, if Ohio State can be the one scoring those touchdowns, I think you can have a little bit of a mix of both. If the Ohio State defense can stand tall and correct some of those wrongs that happened against Michigan, which, we could talk about till we're blue in the face, then, I think Ohio State's got a chance in this game. And I think Ohio State is very confident that they can do those things. It's just a matter of going out and executing against a really, really good Georgia team, especially that Georgia defense. This Ohio State offense has to be on point. It can't be the offense that only scored 3 against Michigan in the second half. It can't be the offense that struggled against Penn State in the first half. It's got to be the offense that everyone expected to see all year from C.J. Stroud and those guys.
Yeah, Spencer, and C.J. Stroud is certainly talented enough, and Lord knows he's got weapons galore to do it. I thought it was really funny. I really enjoyed y'all's coverage today. I was laughing listening to the Buckeyes left tackle, Paris Johnson. He was talking about – he basically named the entire Georgia defensive line when he was talking about the matchups. But I also know that guy is, I don't know, top 15 pick down the line. I mean, he's a star player in his own right. Ohio State's got a lot of pride, and if you keep C.J. Stroud upright, you got to sense that this offense can make big plays down the field in the passing game. Will they forsake the running game and just accept that they have to throw it around the lot, or do you think they're going to try to establish a running game?
It's interesting that you bring this up because I was talking to some of the Georgia folks standing around today after our media session, and they were talking about how if you try to establish the run to set up the pass against Georgia, you're going to fail, because they know that you're going to try to establish a run. Well, Ohio State doesn't do that. Ohio State throws the ball to establish the run. Mm-hmm. And so Ohio State throws it to set up the run instead of vice versa, where most teams will run the ball to set up play action, to set up the pass. Well, Ohio State wants to throw the ball in order to loosen that defense up, soften it up, and then hit you in the running game. And so if Ohio State has success on early downs throwing the ball, I think they can have some success running the ball, because Georgia, as good, as talented as this Georgia team is, you've seen teams be able to make plays on them. You saw LSU throw the ball on them. You saw Missouri have some success. That's not a very great Missouri team, but they had some success throwing the ball on Georgia. You saw even the team, I asked C.J. Stroud today, a team like Vanderbilt, they did some things with their wide receivers that C.J. Stroud said he liked and he saw. And, of course, that game was a blowout, and Georgia was never in jeopardy of losing that game. But Ohio State's drawn things not just from the Tennessee game, not just from Alabama last year, not just from LSU having success in that SEC championship game. Ohio State's drawing a little bit of things from everybody. And so if they can throw the ball to set up the run, I think Ohio State can have some success on the ground in this game. It's just going to be a matter of, keep chipping away at that ice, and eventually that big cube is going to crack.
On the other side of the ball, really the lament, and like you said, we could have talked about it till we're blue in the face, but nobody wants to do that. Ohio State got a second chance. They're in this thing now. They're one win away from playing for the national championship. But in order to do that, you can't give up the big plays, the big chunk plays that you saw Michigan have success with. And I suspect that Ohio State's defense will play with a chip. There's also a lot of talented players on that side of the ball. We've talked about it before when we've joined forces and had these conversations. And you're not going against Obviously, Stetson Bennett's a very talented quarterback, and he is an accomplished quarterback, but nobody would put him in that same category as some of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks in the country, the way that we typically see in the college football playoffs. So I guess size up this Ohio State defense against this Georgia offense and what you think will be critical to the matchup.
Yeah, it comes down to in the trenches. Can Ohio State stop Georgia, and can Ohio State pressure Stetson Bennett? If you're letting Stetson Bennett get out of the pocket and make plays with his legs and make defenders look silly, you hate to use those phrases, deceptively fast and things like that, but that's Stetson Bennett. He's got some wheels. He's got those legs. He can really move and he can rumble. And so if you're allowing him to get out of the pocket, make plays off schedule, for a former walk-on, he's really good off schedule. And the receivers and tight ends find ways to get open. If you can pressure him and make him uncomfortable, I think Ohio State can stop this Georgia ground game. I like their running backs. I like Kendall Milton. I like Kenny McIntosh. Those guys do a good job. But I think they're even better out of the passing game, those running backs and those tight ends. And then the wide receivers are almost complementary to those guys. If Ohio State can keep Georgia off schedule, not let them run the ball for 4, 5, 6 yards a carry, make Stetson Bennett drop back, and then get some pressure on him, I think Ohio State's got a real chance to slow down this Georgia offense. We saw it only score 16 against Kentucky and have issues in the red zone. We saw it settle for field goals against Missouri and really struggle in that game. We saw it against LSU kind of stall out there at moments. And we saw Georgia Tech have a lot of success against this Georgia offense, defensively. And that's a Georgia Tech team that fired its coach midway through the year because it was so poor. And so I think Ohio State can have some success defensively, but you got to know where Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington are. You've got to keep Stetson Bennett either in the pocket or get him to the ground once he escapes the pocket. And you've got to be able to keep Georgia off schedule, because if the Dogs are in 2nd and 6 to 2nd and 4, if they're in 3rd and 3 to 3rd and 1, you're in a lot of trouble because they're going to sustain drives and they're going to wear you down with their physicality.
2 things, Spencer. It may seem like an absurd question to Ohio State fans, but for those of us looking from the outside and wondering, where's Ohio State's confidence? They have every reason to be very confident. They're a great program year in and year out. They're always in this position to be talked about in a game like this. But when you lose a big game like that, you always wonder how quickly a team comes back from that. So where are they mentally, and then secondarily, how are they physically, relative health heading into this football game?
Yeah, I think you should expect to see Mayan Williams. I think Matthew Jones has been practicing at the guard spot, which is huge for this interior offensive line to be at full strength, to have all 5 starters in there. You don't want to be going against Jalen Carter with a hobbled Matthew Jones. I think he's going to be able to give it a go. I think they're about as healthy as they're going to be at corner, where they've been kind of dinged up all year. I think Mike Hall, the defensive tackle, who looked like an All-American the first half of the year, then was hurt the second half of the year and didn't really have an impact. Expect to see him in the mix. I think he has a real chance to be an All-American candidate next year. This could be a springboard for him. I think this team is as healthy as it's going to be. It's, no TreVeyon Henderson, no Jackson Smith and Jigba, but they've been playing, with a hand behind their back all year. As far as TreVeyon's had that foot injury, Jackson's only played, I think he only had 4 catches all year. They're both out, but they've got all their weapons that they need to be able to compete against Georgia. I think this is a healthy bunch. I think it's a confident bunch. We talked to a lot of those guys today, including Kevin Wilson, some of those wide receivers. They know the challenge that Georgia presents, but they also understand that, this is a talent equating game. When talent equates, who plays better? Ohio State plays well. There's no reason to think Ohio State can't win this game because, Georgia might be the second best team as far as total talent in the country, maybe behind Alabama. Well, Ohio State's right there at number 3, and the Buckeyes haven't been, resting on the recruiting trail. They've been hitting it hard just like Georgia has the last 4 years. These are 2 absolutely loaded rosters. There's a ton of pros everywhere on the field. You're going to be able to count probably with both hands how many first-round picks are on the field in this game. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think Ohio State has every reason to be confident, and the Buckeyes sure seem so today when we talked to them in Atlanta. Great
coverage as always, Spencer. I'll remind everybody to head on over to Lettermen Row and get the latest before this matchup. And you're right, it's always nice to be armed and equipped with the requisite talent necessary to match up against a Georgia. If anybody can, certainly it is Ohio State. Spencer, be well. Enjoy the coverage. Enjoy the game. I'll hopefully be talking to you again down the line here real soon. Be well, buddy. Thanks for your time.
Thanks. As always, I'm really looking forward to New Year's Eve. It's going to be a lot of fun down here in the Peach State.
Yeah, good times. Yeah. Once again, everybody, Lettermen Row, that is Spencer Holbrook doing a great job for us at On 3. That's another game preview. Don't forget to like and subscribe and get our next game preview, which will be for the national championship. You're going to want to know when that posts as well. Until next time, enjoy the rest of the football, everybody. Until next time, I'm Jeff Cameron. Take care.